I'm also a serial entrepreneur. So I like inventing stuff, which is why I tinker. I have a TikTok where I share different topics around like how to prep for a new job. I do some Raspberry Pi projects. I will also share games for learning. So games that you can use to learn how to code, data science, and different like project management, product management to help people kind of gain skills on their own. And we'll talk about why that's important like in our day and age. So I'm going to put a link in the chat, and I would love it if we can take, how many people are on this right now?
We have a total of 15, including yourself, myself.
Okay, so in chat, just for the sake of time, if you guys can put in like, where do you work, and what are you most excited about this year at work, like from a work perspective? You can either put where you work or what do you do specifically if you're really excited about that. But then what are you most excited about this year when it comes to like your work in L&D? All right, so I see Hawaii, USA, FSU, curriculum manager, so leadership development. Okay, great. Love that. Hawaii Petroleum, all the new projects they have planned for leadership and training. So leadership seems to be something big. L&D consultant launching new training program and customer service skills. Island Holding, growing future leaders. Queen's Health Systems, upgrading the LMS. That sounds exciting. Is it Palama Health Centers? Excited to start working on other departments on their training needs. Pearl Hawaii Federal Credit Union, expanding training programs. Okay, thank you so much for you guys for sharing this. This is like really important because you know what? A lot of this is tied to trends, right? And so let's first define a trend before we jump into the mural. So a trend is something that I like to call a weak signal, right? So trends start off as very weak signals. They're like those little, they're those things that you start to hear about, but you're not really sure what they are. And trends either die, right? Like let's think about high-waisted jeans. Like they were a trend at one point, they died, then it was like low-rise jeans, now it's like high-waisted jeans again. So those trends change. Trends in music change, right? So trends in hairstyles, like those, like I still have 80s hair, right? So like I never escaped the 80s trend, but it's back again. So like I'm in style again. So trends tend to fluctuate, they ebb and flow. Some trends stick. And so I'm going to put a link in here. And what you're going to do is don't leave the Zoom. I almost forgot what technology we were using. I'm going to share my screen so for the recording, but don't leave the Zoom, but you can minimize it and we'll work inside of the mural. And I'm going to share my screen just for the sake of the recording. Okay, cool. And as you jump onto the mural, let's see. Yay. Okay, great. So it looks like we're working here. Yay. So how many of you have used mural before? No? Okay, I see some hands. So I'm going to give you a quick, this is going to be like a very quick intro. So you can use your mouse to zoom in and zoom out. I'm going to call you to the specific area I want you to be at. So I can be like, I'm going to summon you. And so once I summon you, everyone is going to be where I want you to be. Then I can release control. You can double click on the board and add a sticky. You can resize that sticky and you can type inside of the sticky note. by double clicking on the sticky note once you add it. So what I want us to do is I want you to add a sticky note to the board, and I want you to write down like what trends have you experienced in the past 10 years. So let's do a look back, right? So in the past 10 years, what are some trends that you've seen and that maybe have stuck or maybe not? And you can add more than one sticky. And so the sticky notes, you could just double click and it'll post it right on the board. You don't need to grab anything from the toolbar. There you go. And if you happen to put a sticky note over someone else's sticky note, you can move your sticky note around. And then you have to release your sticky note so we can all look at it. I'll make this bigger. Okay. All right, so I'm seeing some. And feel free to add more sticky notes if you run out of space on your sticky notes. Sticky notes are free here. I don't charge you for the sticky notes. Okay, I'm going to give everyone like a few more seconds just to, if you want to add some more. All right, 2 seconds. All right. So thank you everyone for like posting your sticky notes. Thank you. Great job. So let's look at some of these. So I see here, there's some LMS in here, all-in-one LMS remote learning, blended learning, LMS, AR, VR, LRS, XAPI, some gamification, games and competitions, which is like gamification, a lot of remote, moving away from formal training, virtual work. Yep. Kahoot, LMS, LRS is social learning. That's another big one. LinkedIn learning. So I'm just going to ask you guys a quick question, and anyone can come off of mute and answer this. How have any of these trends impacted your work in L&D? How you create training? Feel free to come off of mute and just holler at us.
Hey, this is Jerome.
Yeah, Jerome.
I think we have to be mindful of how technology is advancing the way that we learn, and how the subsequent generations like to learn. We also have to be mindful of how the organization likes to learn as well, because while maybe the current generations, they only want to do things a certain way, like the organization right now might not be there. So finding that middle ground of integrating some of the newer technology and also respecting the current organizational climate.
Yeah, that's a good one, right? Like it's like really trying to figure out how do we meet learners, right, and their needs. And that's something that L&D tends to do fairly well in theory. Right. And I say that that it's in theory because a lot of times L&D turns into an order taking machine, and you're not giving sufficient time to evaluate what the learner needs are, and you focus more on the solution, right? So you guys tend to create solutions in search of problems without truly understanding what the problem is. And so that's difficult because of the time constraints you guys are put under and the pressures that are put on you. And I think that L&D, we're going to start seeing a move towards L&D being able to have a little more autonomy to actually do some of that alignment to the business, right? Because that's something that's really important. So let me just open up here. I'm going to move. I just need to move this over so I can open up my outline so we can go to my next area. So now what I want to share with you are some trends that these are not trends that I made up. I like to make things up, but not this. This is actually data driven, right? So I just came back from ATD ICE last night, and I had some really good takeaways. And at conference, it was interesting to see that some of these were part of the theme of the conference also, specifically metaverse, hybrid work, a lot of discussion around DEI and mental health, right? So, you know, there was some talk about learning journeys, some data analytics talk, very little to no talk around blockchain and NFTs. There was like one session that mentioned it. Some talk about artificial intelligence. I did a session on building Alexa skills, which falls into the artificial intelligence. I attended a really great session on D&I. It was so well done that I was fangirling over the presenter because she does such a great job, and really put things into perspective. But these are trends that we're going to continue to see in learning and development that are going to have a huge impact in the way that you create training and the type of learning and development that you're going to have to do. I think hybrid work is something that organizations are still trying to define right now, because we're returning post-pandemic, right? So everyone, we were in lockdown for 2 years, and now it's like they're telling us like we're going back to the office is open back up, right? Like come on in, and no one wants to go in. And so employers are trying to figure out like how do they define that hybrid work, and that means that L&D needs to figure out like how do we prepare people for that hybrid work environment? Like what are the trainings that we need to provide? What is the preparation? How do we prepare the workforce for that? The second is the metaverse. How many of you have played in the metaverse? Give me a quick like thumbs up here. Okay, just a few of you. So I play a lot in the metaverse, and just because I am trying to figure it out, right? I'm trying to figure out like how do we best use it beyond just like to have a presentation, which is very meta, right? Like I'm going to deliver a presentation in the metaverse of me delivering a presentation. That's very meta, but it's really not a great use case because I could give you a presentation just the way I'm doing right now. The fact that we're doing it in the metaverse, I think it adds just a level of novelty. And there's other use cases for the metaverse, and we still need to figure those out. And I think that there's a huge opportunity there. What do you guys, out of these trends, I'd love to hear from you. Which ones jump out to you? Actually, let's do this because I know that everyone may be, let's vote on these. Let's see which ones you guys feel are going to have the biggest impact for you. So let me just turn on voting here really quick. And for voting, the way you vote is you just click on the circle. Give me a second. You're just going to click on the circle and to vote on it, and it'll count out which one you want to vote on. So give me a second. Okay. So whoever put the circle on top of my circle, can you delete that? Because I can't delete it now. Thank you. Okay. And I'm going to turn this on. And so you can vote. You're going to get one vote. So I want you to vote on which one do you think is going to have the most impact. So you vote just by clicking on the circle that you want to vote on. And if you want to remove your vote, you can just click on that same circle again. Oh, you guys all voted. You guys are quick. Okay. So let's see what you guys voted. Oh, it didn't give me the results here. Okay, mural's failing me. Let's
Yeah,
see
the
if I can pull it.
circles were grayed out.
Oh, they were all grayed out. Okay, let's try this again. Mural is not playing right with me right now. Okay.
Call Melissa, tell her.
Okay, let's try this again. Let me include some circles here. Okay. Let's try this again. You're gonna get one vote, so you can vote on a circle just by clicking on it. I'm gonna give you 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna end voting now. Everyone voted. Let's see if this worked now. Okay, so the trends that you guys see that are gonna have the most impact are data analytics, mental health, post-pandemic impacts, hybrid work, learning journeys, and then only 2 of you voted on reskilling, upskilling in the metaverse. That's interesting to me. So based on these top ones, right? If anyone, whoever voted on data analytics, do you want to share why do you think this is going to have a great impact?
I think for me, it's mining the data. So that way you can find out what your users want, because it's hard to gauge with the various generations that exist within the workplace, as well as the trends that are happening within our environment. So extrapolating that data and data mining it can tell you some of the, whether it's trends or building histograms to see like where the 95 percentile of the mean exists, and that way you know what direction to head.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So being able to create data driven and data based learning solutions, right? That's what it comes down to meet the needs of your learners, instead of just guessing, like someone telling you, oh, we need training on this new software, right? Because we upgraded it. And, the change is really like 1 or 2 clicks, and being able to gauge from your learners what they really need. How about around mental health? Because I think this is a really interesting one. Anyone want to share on that one? Feel free to come off. Yes, Jerome.
I think that the pandemic really amplified how much mental health is an issue for people at work. And maybe they already had mental health issues, but now that when they were stuck in the pandemic and they couldn't talk to people, couldn't connect, it only exacerbated that loneliness feeling. And how does work play a part in helping employees feel whole again? How does technology do that too? I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. We had during conference, we had some interesting discussions around mental health, and just the fact that I think everyone's depressed these days. And we just don't know it, right? Because we've been through a pandemic. And so that post-traumatic, stress of the pandemic, and that leads into that post-pandemic impacts, right? Like, how does it impact employee performance? How does it, like, you may have someone that was a high performer pre-pandemic, and post-pandemic, they may have shifted their priorities, right? And maybe being a top performer is no longer part of their motivation, because they've realized that maybe they have something else that they need to focus on, whether it's their health, their family. Do you know what I mean? So priorities have shifted. So those post-pandemic impacts are going to be an interesting impact on L&D also. Hybrid work, we talked about learning journeys. I think that ties into data analytics, reskilling, upskilling. I think the Great Resignation has had a huge impact on that. And now we're getting into like the great reboot. I've seen so many people announcing on LinkedIn that they got a new job, and I think that's just phenomenal, especially people that I saw lose jobs during the pandemic. Who were, I can't tell you the number of messages I got from people telling me, I lost my job. Can you help me? Like, can you give me a recommendation? Can you give me some advice on like, how do I go about finding a new job? So that's been it was really hard to see so many people lose their jobs, but it's really exciting to see so many people like re-enter the workforce again. And then the metaverse, right? It's still new. It's still evolving, and we still don't know what it is yet. And I'm gonna close this because I wrote an article for ATD around blockchain that's going to be published next month in the issue of ATD, where I talk about blockchain and the potential impact it has for L&D. And I think that the way we were looking at blockchain early on was that, you know, we would have a single sign-on method that would allow you to enter all these systems through a single sign-on. And that's changing as more and more people are creating their own versions of the metaverse and their own versions of blockchain. And so I think we're going to see that evolve also. Right now, we can issue blockchain-based credentials and help learners gain autonomy over their own data through blockchain. And this whole concept of NFTs and allowing learners to actually own a portion of their training, right? So I think there's some interesting things around there. So let me just open up my, and let's look at something else. So, okay, so I want to ask you now, so now that I presented, what are the trends that I see and that, you know, from just data that I've read and research, I want to hear from you. What are some trends that you've been hearing about? So you add a sticky note and add a trend to the board. What are some trends that you have been seeing that you're curious about too, that maybe, it doesn't have to be L&D, it could just be a technology trend. It could be any kind of, you know, a trend that impacts your daily life, because believe it or not, those trends tend to seep their way into L&D in some way, shape, or form. All right, see a couple like hybrid training, use of AI tech, sustainable integration. That's super interesting. Digital signing of documents and remote signing of documents. AI, moving towards self-service. VR. Telehealth apps and virtual counseling. Yep. Going green. HR business partner. Oh, I like that one. Cultural intelligence. Novel and adaptive thinking. That's another great one. Ooh, psychological safety. We talked a lot about that, creating psychological environments. And how do you do that? Cognitive flexibility. You guys are coming up with some good ones. All right, so keep on adding some, and I'm going to actually call on people because I want you to talk about what you've shared. So I'm going to do a round robin. Laurel, Brooks, can you share what you added to the board and why?
Yeah, no, this is really exciting for me because both me and my company, I feel like we're pretty behind the times. So any like normal thing that we're like 5, 10 years behind is what it feels like. So the idea of AI is just like, whoa, we're all we got our mind blown by that. And I know that's kind of old news now, but I wrote AI, and then we're also I work for the utility, and so sustainable energy is kind of like our big push right now. And I just wrote that out because we were talking about trends that may integrate into L&D, and I know that's top of mind for the company. So wondering how that might play out too.
Yeah, so I would call that kind of a weak signal in L&D, right? Because not a lot of people are talking about it, but everyone's thinking about it, which is interesting, right? And I think that we'll see some impacts on that. Thank you for sharing, Laurel. How about Jessica?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I put down digital or remote signing documents because through the pandemic, we adopted this feature and it kind of pushed us to be more, I guess, to find ways to service our people in an electronic or digital virtual manner. So when we adopted this, it was very hard or difficult for our staff to grasp it because it was something very new. But it was actually it's very easy for our members to just sign documents, send it to us virtually, and it automatically archived into our system. And I thought, wow, I can get used to this. So now I'm expecting other companies to be the same way. Unfortunately not, but I feel that that is the direction that we're all going towards.
Yeah,
Everything virtual. Yeah.
I agree. Do you think that that will have an impact on compliance training?
Oh yes, definitely. The question's already coming up, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
because I always say compliance training, I have to, especially compliance training that you have to renew every year. I always say, like, can I just sign a document that says I read it? Don't make me sit through an e-learning course. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting, right, to see what kind of impact it has.
Mhm.
And so that's a very unique use case. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
How about Daryl?
Hello.
Hi.
I put on the chatbots, the AI. When you look at the way people learn now with Siri and Alexa and just hollering out your questions and then getting the answer, why would you need to go to a training class in the future? Right? You have a question, you want something quick, you want something handy, you pull stuff up on YouTube to watch and get your answer. So is the classic training going to be an outdated learning model?
Yeah, I would love, it'd be fun to do is to run a simulation. So I don't know how many of you have participated in like paper-based simulations where you think about a future 10 years down the road or something like that would be true, right? And how does that impact L&D? That would be something fun to do. Thank you for sharing that because that's super interesting also. Brandy Hart.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I added the HR business partner and use of AI. I work at Queens and we're currently revamping our HR departments and our division, going towards more of a business partner per se, to serve our organization. And they're going to start bringing in the use of AI, which is kind of scary, but at the same time, maybe it'll help to button up some of our processes, and just, I guess, be better moving forward.
Yeah, so are you talking about like moving from like a centralized HR to a decentralized HR with the HR business partners?
I believe so. Yeah, it's still in the works. They're still having meetings about it. So we're just going through all of these changes.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So at Amazon, we have a decentralized HR system, which means every team has an HR business partner that makes decisions. And so it's very effective, especially because we work in teams and we tend to have a flat structure. So I would love to hear and see what that brings in the future for companies that start to adopt that model. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Christy.
Hi, I'm the one that can't participate because it's blocked on our network. So
Okay, that's
Laura, do you
fine.
guys think that you're 5 years behind? We're times 10 on that one. But one of the trends that I'm seeing too is diversity, equity, inclusion. I saw somebody put D&I training on there. So yeah, we're trying to do like a lot more LGBT training or LGBTQIA plus training, and a lot of cultural competence type of training. So
Yeah. I think that's a lot of companies that's been the focus for a lot of companies. And I think that it's really driven by this new, the generation that is just entering the workforce, because there's expectations of equity. And so I'm a Gen Xer, and we kind of push the envelope a little, but I think that the next generation is really pushing that envelope and forcing us to look at things differently, which is great. So thank you for sharing that. So I don't want to butcher your name. Is it Sade?
Yes, it
Right?
is.
Ha ha.
I was so busy looking at everyone else's responses, I didn't put a response.
That's all right. Which one jumps out at you?
I was gonna say the D&I, but as everyone was talking, I kind of thought of something that you had just said about the next generation kind of forming how we are moving forward. Like video learning or influencers. So of course I'm thinking of like TikTok and those kind of social media apps. So we're trying to do that within our company as far as making like short recorded videos and assigning it to our staff, or having them, just we put it on our LMS and then they can watch it or we can assign it. But we understand like the attention span. We're trying to keep it at a minimum just so it's quick, so that they can easily digest the information.
Yeah, I love that. So as Cassie mentioned earlier, and I mentioned also, I have a TikTok channel, and TikTok is the longest video you can post is 3 minutes, right? So attention spans have shrunk, right? And so I am going to be doing a LinkedIn Live with Vince Hahn of Mobile Coach, because during the conference, he pulled me aside and he was, Myra, like, I binge watched all of your TikTok videos and I want you to help me set up my TikTok. So I told him this is a great learning opportunity. So why don't we do a LinkedIn Live, because I don't have the superpower to do LinkedIn Live, and we'll do a LinkedIn Live on TikTok. So I've gathered some data over the past year, on TikTok. And I think that there's huge opportunities, right? Because think about user generated content, right? So Sade, I love the idea of generating small bite-sized videos, but I think I would challenge you to think about like user generated content. Like our workforces have such rich knowledge, and a lot of time that knowledge is not passed down, right? So imagine having knowledge workers and workers with expertise, instead of having them write a document where they write out a process or whatever, they do snippets to share their knowledge, right, with incoming new hires or with people that might transition into roles that they're in, and creating kind of a library of video content that can be consumed in those bite size, because after 3 minutes people get bored, right? And I can tell you, I've been hacking that TikTok algorithm. I can tell you that 3-minute video is like, it's about 40% of the people watch the whole 3 minutes. So you got to give them the bulk of your content in that first 60 seconds. So you can, so there's some science going on around that, some like around cognition and stuff that's super interesting. So I hope to share that when I do the session with Vince, and hoping to also do a conference session around that at ATD or DevLearn or one of the conferences once I finish gathering all that data and have more on like the TikTok algorithm and social media algorithms and how do you connect it all. Super interesting. So thank you for sharing that. Melvin.
I didn't actually put anything, but I think for me, I work for a few different companies where I see they're really trying to make something like the more modern experience, like what, for like the younger generation, like trying to create that experience, like a Netflix of learning, where it's like, they people don't like to search for stuff anymore. They want to be able to browse and kind of making those suggestions based on like different ways that people would want to see, right? So like, how Netflix or all, a lot of those platforms, they give you suggestions like based on what you've done. So there's a lot of like that AI. So I involved in that too. We don't really have that at Queens right now, but I mentioned earlier we're looking to upgrade our LMS. So that's at least a step forward, so we can actually, do things that LMSs should do versus this old version that it's kind of broken and junky. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that whole like recommendation system, right, around to personalize someone's experience, I think that's huge. I think you're onto something there, and I think we're going to see more of that in the future once people figure it out. And I think that LMSs are outdated. They're not dead, right? I think they're just outdated and need to kind of be revamped in order to meet the learner needs and the organizational needs. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Kelson, did I pronounce it right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
The trend that I put on the board was VR. And the reason why I put that is, it's definitely a futuristic thing. I think you kind of brought in the metaverse and you're still exploring that as well. I think it takes a lot of time to create buy-in for our learners. And with VR, they're able not only to do the actions, but kind of see and feel how these interactions should kind of feel. So like the virtual reality simulations, you can create kind of these models where learners can, take steps to go through things, and that's kind of exciting.
Yeah. So I've been working in VR. I've been working with VR since 2004. And it has evolved greatly, right, since then. Sorry, not 2004, 2014, when platforms were in their infancy. And now, you can use something like SeekBeak to create a full experience using 360 video just with a few clicks, which is really cool. And I think there's huge opportunities, and that ties into Metaverse, this whole idea of extended reality, where you can use AR, VR, mixed reality, 3D objects, have people with no pants on in an environment, is really Second Life rebooted. That's the way I see it. How many of you are familiar with Second Life? Have you ever heard of it? Yeah. Okay. So it's a reboot of Second Life with no pants, the Metaverse right now. So thank you for sharing that. Let's see who else. Sunny.
Hi everyone. I didn't put it, but I saw it up there. It's hybrid training, and it's something that our company is moving toward. We did full in-person training, and with the advent of the pandemic, we try to do all online training, and that didn't quite work out for us. So now we're headed toward hybrid training.
Yeah. And so I think that has a lot to do also with the hybrid work environment, right, that we're all encountering. So I think that we're going to see a bigger push towards that hybrid training. And I think we can come up with some great innovations around that. So I hope that you start to think outside of the box when it comes to that hybrid training. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so I don't want to butcher your name, and you can correct me if I don't say it right. Makana?
Perfect. Really well done.
You know what it is? Everyone butchers my real name. And so I'm very conscious of like being able to pronounce people's names correctly. So thanks for letting me
Yes.
know I said it right.
Well, most of my life, my middle name has been mispronounced. People say it Reiser, Riser, Rizzler, Risner, Reister. So I had actually put hybrid training, but because I think I'm pretty adept at getting engagement in virtual, and I'm adept at getting engagement in person. But the reason I was late for this call is because someone just called me, and they're going to have 6 people in person, 7 people online. They originally wanted me to be in person, but I said I don't travel, so they'll say, okay, you can be online too. And I'm like, ugh, it's just another layer of work that we have to do to figure out how to keep everybody engaged. And one idea I've heard, and I'm wondering what your thought is about this, is to actually have people in the room on their phones or on their laptops so that they can be participating in the chat, as well as also participating with each other.
Yeah, so I love that idea. So at ATD, so I'm one of the PAC members for ATD, so Program Advisory Committee for the ICE conference. And that was something that I brought up because, you know, we did have 700, I think it was 2,500 people virtually attending the conference virtually, and there were 5,000 people in person. And so how do you get that hybrid audience engaging with each other? And so what we did was, like, especially for super sessions, we had the people that were in person and the people who were virtual join in on the same platform. So the people in the audience could join on their phone or laptop and still connect with the people that were virtually. And I moderated all of the questions through Mentimeter for like the sessions that I moderated. And so everyone got to ask their question, and everyone could have, like, the chat was amazing because everyone was chatting, people that were in person and people that were virtual. And they were having great discussion as the presenter was speaking. So I think it's a really powerful thing to have in that hybrid setting, to have everyone in the room join in on the chat too, right? And that way you can do things that are inclusive for the people who are virtual, so they feel like they're part of it and not like they're this forgotten person. If you've ever attended a hybrid meeting and you're on the phone, you're the one who's virtual, they tend to forget about you, right? Like
Right.
you're like an afterthought. And they're like, oh, like you're on the phone, I forgot. So it's like creating that environment where everyone's in that same virtual platform, even though they're in person. So they all get at least some sort of that same experience and the ability to interact with each other. So I think that's really important. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I just am amazed at the number of people you just said were getting online at the venue. They must have had a huge budget for Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Just the bandwidth alone they must have paid a lot of money for.
Yeah, so a lot of it gets subsidized through the vendors. So I'm just giving you guys like back end stuff. Vendors pay for Wi-Fi.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because you know they have to have Wi-Fi for the booths, and so you get a complete package. And so it's interesting. It's a huge event. And so the challenges are there, but it worked out. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So Jerome.
Oh, hello. I put 2 Post-its.
Okay.
First one was remote work and connection.
Mm-hmm.
Figuring out how we can build team when it's no longer a requirement for the team to come into the office.
Yep.
The last one was telehealth, health apps, virtual counseling. The proliferation of telehealth apps, how people have access to get things like coaching, counseling, therapy, mentorship via an app. And even if you might not have money, they do sliding scale plans.
Mm-hmm.
So the accessibility of these things that we might not have thought were something for me if I was living in like a a nation that doesn't necessarily have that, I think that's really exciting. And then how does work get involved with this, where, you know, traditionally they'll send you to like a big insurance or big medical provider, but now you have all these options where I can have my own personal privacy with this. So I would like to see how that all unfolds.
Yeah, definitely. So Amazon launched an internal a health app for employees, where we can get connected to telehealth. So if we can't make it into like the doctor's office and we're at home with kids and we're in this hybrid work environment, or even, you know, I live by myself with my puppy, like if I need something, I can jump on this telehealth, get a quick triage assessment. They can also order prescriptions for me. And then there's a service where the prescription can get delivered to your house, like same day, which is really cool. So I think we're going to be seeing, and that all falls into that mental health too, right? And that caring for the whole person, which I think we're going to see a lot of companies moving to. I think we're going to see a lot of unlimited PTO. We're going to see movements towards like caring for the individual. Right. And the individual is not only the person, but also like their extended families. I was just on a meeting today with our Amazon leadership, and they're encouraging us, like, if you need a half a day because, you know, you're feeling burnt out, take that half a day. Or, you know, if you need to take, you know, 4 hours in the middle of the day because you have to make lunch, or you have to help with homework, or you have to, you know, you're caring for a parent, or you're, you know, whatever it is, take that time. We're going to see more companies moving towards that because they're trying to lower attrition rates, right? And we had a lot of people leave the workforce. And so companies are trying to retain their employees. And that's going to mean a lot more training, a lot more meeting the needs that everyone has individually, and trying to make things simpler. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And Cassie, how about you?
So mine was the far right column. I put all mines in a row. A lot of it for me was a lot of people who know me on here, I'm the nerd herd. So like I love to push the envelope and do things. So sustainable integration of innovation is huge, because although we build it, doesn't mean they're going to come. And how do we sustain it, even if you should move on to another pasture? The cultural intelligence part was really about us being more sensitive as businesses to our employees, to their surroundings, to whether it's international or within our country. The last two was really around the novel and adaptive thinking. So thinking out of the box, but then how do you then move the novel thoughts and stretch that? And then the last one, cognitive flexibility, really surrounds about data, right? So how do we take the data that we have and flex our minds to understand, okay, this is what the data is saying, but where can we go? Rather than just looking at the time captured, what does this project for the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. I think that you're right. Like, I really love the idea of the sustainable integration of innovation, right? Because I think that plays a huge part in, if you read any of the data reports, if I like to read World Economic Forum reports and the National Organization of Security reports. It's like a weird thing I do, but I like to read those reports because it does give you a look at to like, what is the world really looking at, and where are the risks that are being identified, and what are people demanding. And so I like that generational look. Also, like the next generation coming in, they are big on like holding us accountable for how we're treating the earth. And we haven't been that great to our Mother Earth, and they're making demands. They have requirements that they are not going to allow companies to overlook. And so I think we're going to see some big changes there. Cultural intelligence, that's a big one. I work with international governments, helping them develop national standards that they then adopt in their higher education institutions. And it always amazes me when I have a colleague who has never worked in a global environment tell me like they can just adopt the US model. They can just like, we just create the model here and they can just adapt it as is. And that's not true, right? Especially even here in the US, a US model can't be adopted as is, because we still have, there are 40 I think there's what was it? So there are 4 billion people that are still offline out of 8 billion people globally. So that means that they don't have access to reliable internet, or to wireless service that's reliable to be able to access things. And so one trend that I would love to put up here is going to be the creation of lo-fi content that can be accessed via a mobile device, because even though a lot of people don't have access, there's still like a large portion of the population that does not have access to internet. 90% of people globally have access to a cell phone. And so I think we're going to see, and I hope that the trend does pick up, is lo-fi content. So we tend to have hi-fi content, so content that requires a ton of bandwidth to be able to access. And I think that we're going to start seeing more of that lo-fi content that is accessible. So like those 3-minute videos, right? Or the 15-second videos, e-learning that isn't a big package, but maybe it's like modularized, I can't even say that word, modularized, right? Or, and just like more job aids and the use of, like I'm a big fan of like GoodNotes. I do all of my job aids as editable, editable PDFs. So you can write on the PDFs, whether you're on a phone or a tablet or whatever. And I make it interactive where it has links and stuff like that you can open. It'll take you to a YouTube or take you to some sort of video, short format video. And that's why I also love TikTok and I love Instagram. Because I can publish content onto TikTok, push it to Instagram, push it to Facebook, push it to LinkedIn in one click. And it's just, and then I can create a Pinterest board where I can send people, if you can't access any of those things, go to Pinterest, right? And play it there and have content there also available. So I think we're going to see a movement towards lo-fi content. And I think that's going to be super important because here in the US, 40% of Americans don't have access to reliable internet, let alone globally, right? So, but everyone has access to a cell phone. I grew up in Puerto Rico and I went back home during the pandemic and I was there for a few months. And like my nieces and nephews were attending online school on cell phones and tablets, like little Samsung tablets. And it was heavy bandwidth and it was hard for them to get online and get the schooling they needed. And it's just really interesting that we really need to explore better ways of serving up content that's accessible to everyone. So yeah, thank you everyone for sharing your trends that you're seeing, hearing, and reading about. We have a few minutes left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you guys kind of like a template that I have. Let me just go to here and I'll have you guys follow me. I'm going to summon you all. So this is a template that I like to use for what I call future casting. So this is when I'm looking at a trend, right? Or I'm hearing a weak signal. How do I evaluate it? Right? How do I figure out, is it something that I really want to continue to follow? Or is it something that I need to just keep up on that weak trends kind of list that I keep? I keep a list of weak trends. And so I try to figure out what's the current state of it? Is anyone using it? Or is it just a piece of, it's just an article that someone wrote and it's still an idea phase? And then what assumptions do we have about that technology? So blockchain is one of those. I wrote that article on blockchain that's going to be published in ATD magazine. And it's even the editors were telling me we went back and forth for 12 iterations on this article because they couldn't wrap their heads around blockchain and how it's integrated, how it could be integrated into L&D. And so it was interesting to hear some of their assumptions, right? And so I can tell you the biggest thing, using blockchain as an example, current state is it's already here. It's been here. It's part of cryptocurrency. It's been in place since 2012, right? What assumptions do you have? The assumptions is that it's only for cryptocurrency. And the biggest question that I kept on getting through that speculation fact, what are key factors affecting the current state, is that people still believe that there has to be human intervention in it. And so the editors were having a hard time wrapping their brains around the fact that everything's automated. Like, I just power on a computer and I send a transaction and no one has to touch it. It's all automated through a system, through code. And they could not wrap their head around that. Talking about who are the key players. With blockchain, there's a few key players now. Before, it used to be blockchain and Ethereum. Now there's like Polygon and Solana and different blockchains, and now you can create your own blockchain. And looking at those landscape, the key factors for that landscape is that it's expanding, right? But we're going to see people trying to privatize those blockchains, which defeats the purpose. And so that's something about the forecasting, is that we're going to start seeing people companies trying to privatize a blockchain when blockchain is meant to be decentralized. Once you privatize a blockchain, it's centralized, and then it loses its purpose. And then thinking about what's the potential impact in 3 to 5 years. Kind of looking at the landscape, like what impact could it potentially have, and putting on like your future hat, and it's all guesswork, right? Like, what do you think would happen with it in 3 to 5 years? And then trying to interpret and figure out like, what isn't known, what's known and what isn't known about it, and what additional information is needed in order to make some good decisions. And then finally, a lot of this is just like you building out those future scenarios. Like, how would you use it, right? And just putting your kid hat on and trying to figure out, like, would you use it in L&D? Would you use it in something specific? And the whole point of the exercise is to do this in writing, right? Is to write down your thoughts. And in future casting, I keep journals. I have tons of notebooks. So when I do future casting for any kind of technology, I'll do this really quick. And then I go back to it. Like, I might do it for, I did it with cryptocurrency years ago. When I had bought like $100 in crypto because I wanted to buy something in the black market, right? In 2014. And then I lost my keys, like my public and private keys. So I have no access to my cryptocurrency, and God knows how much money's in there, but it's all about playing in the market and playing in the scenarios, and playing those future scenarios that you might be surprised at how much you can predict, so then you can prepare for it. So when it does come to fruition, you're ready because you've done this future casting. So that's it. Any questions? Any takeaways? Like, what's your biggest takeaway from all of this? Feel free to come off of mute. Don't be shy. I don't bite, guys. Like, just
Once round 2.
I think I like the future, regarding AI and how you're saying blockchain. Like, when you're talking about blockchain, I was thinking, is it going to be built on something that's already existing, or is there going to be a standard across the board that, like, L&D professionals say this is the standard, this is where we'll house it, this, and then you can, other LMSs can kind of pull into it as that's kind of the standard data across the board.
Yeah, I love how you started thinking about that, right? And you can do that with any of the trends that we had posted on the board that we discussed. Cassie, you were saying?
I was just asking everybody here, who, all of you here, who wants to see Myra round 2 in like a future session. I think this is great. A lot of the concepts and things, Hawaii as a state, we're a little bit challenged due to, and everybody can attest to this, whether it is your leadership having to adapt or understand and move forward, because we have boomers and Xers who are at the leadership levels, not quite understanding that the millennials and the Gen Zers who are coming in want things different. And then the people who are in the middle, those cuspers or the Gen Y Xers, they're kind of in tandem where they're like, okay, which way do you want me to go? So I think as a whole, everybody here is probably like, yeah, okay, we want to do these things, but there's so many other constraints that we need to are challenged with. But definitely, if you have any questions, Myra is definitely great to connect with on LinkedIn, and she is available. Definitely check her out on TikTok as well. Her session, I mean, I binge on her stuff. Just like we've had Vince Hahn on here, we've had Melissa Milloway as well. So I'm super grateful for them and having you on here. So it kind of connects all the dots and bringing all these great minds together to see how we're all entwining and building our own human blockchain.
Yeah, definitely. And just, I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but Melissa Milloway are like beer buddies.
No way.
Yeah, I love Melissa. So Melissa and I, we both lived in Seattle. We both have moved away in the past year. And so yeah, for about 4 years, Melissa and I, we would go to a fest called Bacon, Eggs, and Kegs. And then we would hit all of the breweries in Seattle on the weekends. So she is my beer buddy. I miss her.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
But thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you to Myra for your time. I know you just came back from a trip and you're kind of like running and going again. But thanks to everyone for participating. We'll make sure the recording is available for those who had to leave early. And definitely reach out to Myra. She's a great resource. I'm in Fandemonium, just so that everybody knows, because I would always see her at conferences and I would want to go talk to her. But it's like she's a magnet and tons of people gravitate to her. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll wait. But thanks everyone, and have a great day. Appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to connecting with everyone. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. If you ever have a question, just feel free to reach out to me. I try to answer everyone's requests and messages.
Cool. Thanks everyone. Well, have a great day. It was great having everyone.
Bye.
Bye.